You wake up one morning and you don't recognize the person in the mirror. Not because your face has changed, but because the eyes staring back at you feel borrowed. You go through the day. You smile when you're supposed to. You say the right things. You perform the rituals of being you. But deep down, in the quiet moments between thoughts, a terrifying question crawls into your mind. Who the hell am I anymore? Today, we're going somewhere most people never dare to look. Into the slow, silent death of the self. The psychology of losing yourself. We like to believe the self is solid, a fixed point, an unchanging core. I am me, I've always been me, I will always be me. But psychology tells us something far darker. The self is not a thing, it is a story. A fragile, constantly edited narrative your brain tells itself to keep the terror of emptiness at bay. And sometimes the story breaks. Sometimes it is stolen from you, piece by piece, until one day you realize the main character is gone. This is not depression. This is not burnout. This is something quieter, something more final. This is ego death without the spiritual glow-up. This is dissociation without the dramatic fugue state. This is the slow erosion of identity in modern life. And it's happening to millions of people right now, while they scroll, smile, and pretend everything is fine. You wake up one morning, and you don't recognize the person in the mirror. Not because your face has changed, but because the eyes staring back at you feel borrowed. You go through the day. You smile when you're supposed to. You say the right things. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth psychology has been whispering for decades. There is no true self sitting inside your skull like a little homunculus pulling levers. What we call I is a bundle of memories, habits, roles, beliefs, and emotional patterns that your brain stitches together in real time. Neuroscientist Sam Harris calls it the illusion of the self. Buddhist psychology has said the same thing for 2,500 years, but Western clinical psychology is only now catching up, and the findings are chilling. When that illusion cracks, people don't feel enlightened, they feel hollow. Studies on depersonalization derealization disorder, DPDR, show that when the sense of self collapses, sufferers describe it as living behind a glass wall, watching their own life like a movie they didn't audition for, feeling like a ghost wearing a human suit. One patient in a 2023 study said, "I'm not depressed, I'm not anxious, I'm just not here anymore." And the scariest part? Many of them function perfectly on the outside. They have jobs, relationships, social media accounts full of smiling photos. No one knows the main character has already left the building. Losing yourself rarely happens in one dramatic moment. It's death by 1,000 subtle cuts. Here are the main psychological mechanisms. 1. Identity fusion with roles. You become your job. You become mom. You become the funny friend. You become the caretaker, the provider, the perfectionist. When the role is taken away, layoff, empty nest, divorce, betrayal, the scaffolding of your identity collapses. A 2022 study in Personality and Social Psychology Review found that people whose self-worth is heavily tied to external roles experience profound identity loss when those roles end. They don't just lose the role, they lose the feeling of existing. 2. Trauma and fragmentation. Severe trauma doesn't just hurt you, it shatters the narrative. Parts of you split off to survive. The happy child self, the trusting self, the ambitious self. What's left is a patched-together survivor who can function but no longer feels like one coherent person. This is why many trauma survivors say, "I don't know who I am without the pain." 3. The digital mirror. Here's where it gets especially dark for our generation. Every time you curate your online self, you're training your brain to see the performed version as more real than the private one. You post the highlight reel. You compare it to everyone else's highlight reel. Slowly, the gap between who you actually are and who you pretend to be becomes an abyss. A 2024 study from Stanford's Virtual Human Interaction Lab showed that heavy social media users begin to experience self-discrepancy anxiety so severe that their offline self starts to feel fake. You become allergic to your own unfiltered existence. 4. Chronic people-pleasing and self-abandonment. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you shrink yourself to make others comfortable, every time you betray your own values to keep the peace, a small piece of you dies. Psychologists call this self-alienation. Over years, it compounds into full self-erasure. You wake up one day and realize you have no idea what you actually want, think, or feel because you've spent so long managing everyone else's emotions. Let's go inside the brain for a moment. When you lose yourself, several key systems break down. The default mode network, the DMN, the brain's me network, becomes dysregulated. This is the area active when you're mind-wandering and constructing your life story. When it fractures, the story stops making sense. The salience network stops properly tagging experiences as mine. External events feel like they're happening to someone else. Interoception, your ability to feel your own body and emotions, blunts. You stop sensing your own hunger, tiredness, anger, joy. You become a passenger in your own nervous system. Long-term dissociation and identity loss have been linked to measurable shrinkage in the insula and anterior cingulate cortex, the very regions that allow you to feel I exist. You are literally erasing the neurological signature of your own being. And the worst part? The brain adapts. It learns to function without a stable self. Like a computer running in safe mode, everything works, but nothing feels alive. Here's the part nobody talks about. Sometimes losing yourself feels like relief. When the self is gone, so is the pressure to be someone. So is the shame. So is the crushing weight of potential and failure. In some cases, people unconsciously choose self-erasure because being no one is safer than being someone who can be hurt, rejected, or abandoned again. It becomes a sophisticated defense mechanism. You see this clearly in long-term narcissistic abuse victims. Many don't just lose their confidence, they lose the entire internal map of who they were before the abuse. The abuser doesn't just break you, they replace you with a version that exists only in relation to them. And when the abuser is finally gone, there's no one left to fill the void. Just silence. This is the question that keeps people awake at 3 a.m. The terrifying answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. Rebuilding a lost self is not finding yourself like some Instagram inspirational quote. It is psychological resurrection. It requires radical honesty about how much of you is already dead, grieving the person you used to be, sitting with the unbearable emptiness long enough for something authentic to emerge, relearning how to feel your own emotions without dissociating, risking being seen, truly seen, as the messy, contradictory human you actually are. Many people never make it. They spend the rest of their lives performing a version of themselves that feels slightly off, like wearing someone else's skin. Others rebuild, but they are never the same. The new self is quieter, more fragile, more aware of how easily it can be taken away again. And a few rare souls go through the complete death of the false self and emerge with something that feels strangely like freedom. Losing yourself doesn't always look like rock bottom. Sometimes it looks like success. Sometimes it looks like stability. Sometimes it looks like a perfectly normal life. The real horror is how invisible it is. You can lose yourself so slowly, so politely, that no one, not even you, sounds the alarm until the house is already burning down with you still inside it. So I leave you with this. Look in the mirror tonight. Not at your face. Look behind your eyes. Ask yourself, not as a cliché, but as a serious, terrifying question, is anyone still home? And if the answer feels uncertain, maybe it's time to start the long, painful, necessary work of coming back to yourself before there's nothing left to save. If this video disturbed you, good. That discomfort might be the first real thing you've felt in a long time. Drop a comment. Have you ever felt like you lost yourself? How did it happen? Are you still trying to find your way back?